Now, if you're somebody like me, your primary snare drum most likely is going to be medium high to a higher tuning range. Something that's gonna have a lot of bite to it and can cut through a mix. But then what about the songs where you need something that is the complete opposite? Something that's dry, dead, really thuddy sounding. Well, that second scenario, the dead thuddy sound, is the reason why I got this drum. And when I was making this video, I was dumbfounded at the versatility of it. Especially because it's a drum from the 1950s, is a 3-ply mahogany shell, only has 8 lugs, and it's 10 inches deep by 15 inches in diameter. What is going on, everybody? Nick Costa here, and in this video, I'm gonna be showing you a vintage WFL 15-inch 3-ply mahogany field snare drum. This is a WFL branded drum, so it's safe to say that it's most likely from the late 1950s. But the sound that you can get out of this drum is much more than that dead, thuddy sound. Now, before we dive into this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button, as well as the bell notification. That way you're notified of any additional content that I upload to the channel. So I'm not sure if companies are still doing this, but for a while there, everybody was jumping on the trend of the floor snom, is what they would call it. It's where they would take a floor tom, but add a snare wire to the bottom of it. That way you could play it like a floor tom or engage the snare wires and make it that dead snare sound that everybody was going for. Now, rather than having a drum built like that for me, I figured, well, if I want a drum that's dead, might as well get something that's vintage, maybe 3-ply mahogany, and something bigger, like a field drum. And that's how I stumbled across this one. I found this drum about 10 years ago, and it's safe to say that this was a school parade marching drum. You can tell because it's in really rough shape. Let's just say it's in player's condition. And besides the snare throw-off and butt plate, the only additional holes on it are the ones for a leg bracket. So that means that this drum was designed so somebody could march with it. Now, this is a WFL snare drum, and just based off of what I could find online, it looks like these drums were made in the late 1950s because of the fact that it is a 10-inch deep shell by 15-inch diameter. So let's go ahead and dive into the specs of this drum just a bit further. Like I just said, it is a 10-inch deep by 15-inch diameter shell, and based off of everything that I found online, this should be a 3-ply mahogany shell. So it's mahogany, poplar, mahogany with maple reinforcement rings on the top and bottom. Lugs on this drum are double-sided bow tie lugs. There are only 8 of them on this drum. Also, I think it's safe to say the throw-off on this drum isn't original because it's the silver Ludwig scripted throw-off. However, I don't see any additional holes drilled into the shell, so whatever was on this drum, this throw-off has the same spacing for the holes. This drum also has triple flange hoops on the top and bottom, and just based off of the era of this drum, it's safe to say that they are 1.9 millimeters. They're not thick like the current triple flange hoops, which are 2.3 millimeters. Now, when I found this drum, I took it apart, I cleaned it up the best that I could, and I put new heads on it. And the heads I decided to go with for this drum are a Remo Ambassador vintage coated on the top and an Ambassador snare side on the bottom. Now, snare wires on this drum are a set of 15-inch World Max coated snare wires. Now, although I cleaned this drum up to get it into playing condition, I did not do anything to the bearing edges. These are the original edges that were cut from the factory, however long ago this drum was built. And the reason why I didn't change anything is because when I restored my late 60s Ludwig downbeat kit, the very first video, I do mention how I was going to recut the bearing edges, and a ton of people told me not to do it because it would drastically change the sound of the drum and get rid of that vintage tone. And they're absolutely right, because at the end of the day, if you can get the drum to tune, then what's the reason of recutting the bearing edges and changing the sound of the drum? But that's just my opinion on the topic. Now, like I said, I purchased this drum so I could have something that was really deep, dead, and thuddy sounding. So once I got this drum put together and was actually able to play it, I then purchased an original big fat snare drum for it. Now, before we continue on with the video, I wanted to take a moment to let you all know about a graduate level drum set course that I am teaching with Mark DiCiani. So if you are an educator looking for career advancement, whether that is you're looking to go from a bachelor's to a master's degree, maybe master's plus 30, 60, whatever your district might offer. Or if you're somebody who needs graduate level credits for Act 48 hours to keep your certification, you could take either one of the drum set courses Mark and I are teaching through the University of the Arts Summer Music Studies. Now, for this year's SMS program, the courses will be run at Villanova University on July 22nd through July 26th. You'll hang out with Mark and I from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. All you're going to do is play the drum set. Sounds pretty cool, right? Especially because you can get graduate level credit just for playing the drums. So there are 2 courses that are available. Intro to Playing the Drum Set, which is designed for those who might not have too much experience on the drum set and they're looking to improve their skills for either themselves or even maybe their students. And then Playing the Drums Level 2, which was designed for those who took Level 1 but are looking to dive a little bit deeper into their drumming studies. So if this is something that you are interested in, you can head over to uarts.edu/SMS. To make it a bit easier for you, I put a link in the description below. Now, let's get back to the video. For this Snare Saturday video, just like every other video, I'm going to play this drum through a few different tunings. Now, since this drum does not have an internal dampener, but I do have that big fat snare drum, while I'm in each tuning, I will play the drum without the big fat snare drum, and then I will add it to the drum so you can hear the difference that it makes. Because fun fact, when you put one of these on your drum, the tuning does affect the sound. So, enough of me talking, let's dive in. So there are a couple things that I want to identify right out the gate. Number one, it's an 8-lug drum. By doing just a quarter turn on each of the tension rods, it drastically changed the tuning of this drum, which was really surprising to me because usually with an 8-lug drum, you have to do a bit more to increase the tuning compared to, say, a 10-lug drum. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. How ridiculous the tuning range is on this thing. It's a 3-ply mahogany shell. And I don't know about you, but when I think about a vintage 3-ply mahogany shell, I think of something that's warm, something a little bit darker in tone. Not something that can be cranked up as much as this drum was and get that kind of a sound out of it. Especially because it's a 10-inch deep shell by 15 inches in diameter. People freak out over an 8-inch deep by 14-inch drum. So the fact that this is 2 inches deeper and 1 inch bigger in diameter, it's ridiculous the fact that this drum can get that high. But either way, I would love to get your feedback on what you thought of this drum, so make sure that you leave it in the comment section below, letting me know. Now, if you were surprised by this drum and you figured, you know what, I need one of those in my collection too, you can search for a WFL 15-inch parade snare, or WFL marching snare, or WFL 15-inch parade drum, and I'm sure you'll be able to find something that's pretty similar to this. And since this drum most likely was in a school, if the band director is like me and loves to collect all of their drums, there might come a time where they say they don't need it anymore, and maybe you can get it and provide a charitable donation to their program. Now, if you have any other additional questions, maybe on how I tuned this drum or maybe my process for cleaning it and getting it into a condition that you can play it, you can also leave that in the comment section below as well, and I'll try my best to answer it. Also, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see some of the earlier videos from the Snare Saturday series, I put a link to the playlist in the description below, and I'll also have it pop up right here to make it a little bit easier for you. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up. That way it makes it a little bit easier for others to find it. And that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this video on the vintage WFL 15-inch 3-ply mahogany field snare drum. And until next time, see you later.